is someone asked me recently, he said, "Hey, Adam, do you still like jiu-jitsu?" and I was like,
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Q&A for BJJ. We have a special guest, Adam Childs. He's going to chime in on some of our questions today.
Yes, you'll be getting some average advice from me.
Now, just for fun, we're going to let Ads field every question first up. We will be having 3 humans inputting on each, so gents will agree to keep it on the shorter side.
Yes, sir.
First one coming in from Rob.
Hi guys, my name's Rob. I started BJJ at 50. Thought I was doing a good thing because I had lots of lower back problems and my body was pretty much crumpled up from sitting down all the time. Found out that BJJ was probably the worst thing I could be doing for my rounded body, but got onto you guys, joined the app, and have been training now for 12 months and making really good progress, feeling much stronger, much fitter and more mobile than I have in a very, very long time.
Amazing.
The issue for me is one of imbalance. I've got an imbalance in strength. One side of my hips much, much stronger than the others. I've been training some one-legged stuff, but doesn't seem to be making any progress. And so just wondering if you've got any tips. Do I need to go and find somebody and get a specific program? Is it just a matter of persisting with doing more stuff in terms of one leg? I'd appreciate it if you could just let me know what you do with an imbalance in your body. Thanks. Love listening. Love your podcast. Thanks for all your help.
Yeah, what a curly one to kick Ads off.
Rob, here's what you do. So strength conditioning, mobility, not my specialty. But yeah, like Joey said, I'll keep it super short rather than us, bantering for ages because there's 3 of us. Obviously, if there's an imbalance and it's causing like pain and injury or whatever, that's an issue. And, you need to see someone, whether that's a physio or whatever. But if you're just talking about you feel there's a generic imbalance in your strength, personally, for me, I would just lean into that in the sense that unless you're completely ambidextrous, there's always going to be some level of imbalance. I personally, my guard on left side and right side is completely different. I don't do the same guard on both sides because I'm not ambidextrous with my arms and legs, right? Certain body parts are better at certain movements and stronger in certain ways. That's what I would say. Obviously, if it's causing pain, there's an imbalance and it's walking funny and throwing your hip and back out of alignment, that's a whole different thing that I'm not qualified to talk about.
Good bit of logic in there.
Not bad.
JTs?
I have had hip imbalance, still slightly do. Left side hip not as strong as the right side hip. I do think there is value in doing specific work for it. So I would encourage you to actually go and, like you said, you can feel there's a difference. It is worth going and seeing someone to get it assessed to try and bring it back up to a degree of parity, like evenness. But yeah, it's actually probably not as hard to do as you might think. In the same way, someone who just does bench press all the time ends up with the big titties and bad posture. You can work that to your advantage and just start to do specific hip work and single leg work just to build up that hip as if it were an injury. But what's interesting is oftentimes when people do this, that thing they work on gets stronger than the other hip and, it's like that. But yeah.
Yeah, so I like your point. I guess it depends on like what movements you experience in the imbalance, like where specifically is the imbalance, right? But one thing we do know generally with injuries is that having a greater amount of imbalance between left and right side is a high indicator of injury risk. So like say for me, when I was coming back from my knee surgery, I had a huge amount of imbalance because I just lost a lot of muscle and strength on that side. And I did basically heaps of isolation training for that leg, quadricep, hamstring, glute, calf, like just all the major muscle groups of that leg. I just smashed them. And really simple, like if I was training legs, I would be doing 4 sets on that side and like 1 or 2 sets on the other side. And the idea was that the idea was almost to neglect my strong side a little bit so that I could close the gap and then we could move forward together.
Nice.
And man, that worked really well for me. So, but that was also under the guidance of an expert. So like JT said, go see a physio and they should be able to take you through that process in a pretty straightforward manner.
Yes, sir.
Good one, Rob. But man, how cool is that? Stoked to hear that you found some kind of salvation from the pain of jiu-jitsu through our app.
Appreciate you, man.
Awesome. Next one coming in from Tam. On the show, we talk about how you can get healthy for jiu-jitsu and practices that you want to have as part of your day-to-day so that you can be in the best possible shape to train. And this is whether you're an athlete or just the everyday jiu-jitsu hobbyist. One of those habits is using electrolytes. We've spoken about this on other episodes, and electrolytes, although incredibly simple, are one of the missing links for people when it comes to performance. And the beauty of electrolytes is that they allow us to be hydrated. So we're talking about salt, potassium, and magnesium. Now, today's show is actually brought to you by Sodi, and this is a crew that we've been partnered with now. We are using Sodi on a daily basis, and the beauty of what these guys do, this little Australian company, is that they put in a beautiful mix of salt, potassium, and magnesium, and delicious flavors. You punch it in some water. I throw it into a protein shaker. I put 1 or 2 of these bad boys in there, and I drink it before, during, and after training. I just sip on that thing, and I tell you what, my hydration levels feel better than ever before, and it's delicious. Sometimes I use it first thing in the morning. I even pumped one last night because I felt a little bit parched after dinner. So go check out Sodi, SODII.com.au, and use the code Bulletproof15, and you will get 15% off your order. Get hydrated, get Sodi.
Hi guys, what do you think of Josh Saunders, the guy that got from white to brown in 23 months, or what's your opinion of him? Do you think his journey would be applicable for most people, and what's your thoughts of it so far? Thanks. Tam.
Is that actually Josh Saunders leaving a question about himself? That'd be the sick play. Ads, you heard of Josh Saunders?
I don't really have anything to say. I don't think. Maybe.
Go on, speak your mind, Adam.
I don't know, man. If we're talking about the belt progression thing, I don't know. You could do a whole 2-hour-long episode to it, and I've done on my podcast, you guys have done on your podcast, like a belt's, still a thing, no gi versus gi, like blah, blah, blah. Is IBJJF still relevant, so there's...
there's all of that to consider.
There's all of that. Short of being a savant, I think it's very unlikely to acquire the amount of knowledge of a brown belt in that amount of time, So, I don't know. And I also think jiu-jitsu isn't just a sport like tennis is, where your rank solely depends on how well you do in competition, right? There's more to jiu-jitsu than that. Like, it is definitely a combat sport like boxing, wrestling, Muay Thai, these other sports that don't have belts. Jiu-jitsu is a combat sport, but it also is a sport that people can participate
It's also
in.
a martial art.
It's also a martial art, right? So I think there is, whether you want to cut it as 50-50 or whether you want to say it's 80% martial art, 20% combat, whichever way you slice the pie, there is at least some percent of it being a martial art, in my opinion. So, like I said, we could talk about belts and this scenario for hours.
I would agree with that. I think for the no-gi crew, like the no-gi elite competitors, the discussion around belts is kind of redundant. They were talking about it on, they still call Nicky Rod the black belt slayer. And you're like, whatever. Like, maybe that was cool when he was like, first came on the scene, but it doesn't matter now, because you're the most effective competitor, and that's all your jiu-jitsu. Like, you are just a competitive jiu-jitsu player. So yeah, I think that it like, if you start to bring in the belt thing, and I know that Josh uses that, of course, like, not to take away from his personal journey and not to discredit his rank, right? Like, he got to a brown belt, his coach obviously thinks it's good enough, but it's like, it's a bit of a marketing ploy, I think, in that way. So for Tam or for anyone else, it's like, maybe I could get to that level in 2 years. I don't think that that's an aspiration you should hold, because it's kind of, I think it's just a bit of a marketing slogan in that sense.
All right, I know Josh. I like Josh. Shout out Josh Saunders. I train with Josh. Josh has an interesting personality because he often alienates people, but there's a hardness to that man which I respect. And every time I see him, we get on. We've rolled. He beat me up a fair bit. It's no problem. I'm up for it. In terms of someone being white to brown belt in a short amount of time, Like his coach Luke is a really good coach, and they've got a great thing going on at Sydney West. He's also 6'4", 120 kilos, exceptionally strong human who also likes to just fucking put smash on people. Is that who you are, Tam? I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Are you LeBron James at 14 years old? Probably not. Like, there's not many people who can be Josh Saunders. That guy is here for all the smoke. He's flipping the bird to everyone, and he wants to fucking stomp down the door and kick your head in. That's him. Like, that's great if that's who you want to be. But is that who you are? I would say possibly not. His case is a rare one, and it's impressive, but I would say that is not applicable to all people. What I would be interested to see is if Josh becomes a remarkable jiu-jitsu coach down the track. I look at him as a remarkable athlete. I'm not detracting from his jiu-jitsu, but I've never actually been taught by him other than him just trying to put it on me. You know what I mean? So I think there is a big difference between great athletes and great coaches, and we've yet to see where his journey goes. So,
are you implying there that the skill acquisition that's implied with the belt ranks would make someone like a better coach versus just being a good competitor?
Maybe because there's many people out there who are great athletes who don't become great coaches, and then there's people who maybe weren't the greatest athletes who do emerge as great coaches, right? Like I would say it's early days to see if Josh's journey is the best way.
Yeah, like I think, sorry, I know I already had my piece, but yeah, because it's not just on competition results, right? Like if that were the case, I mean, what are we going to be all calling John Danaher a white belt? Are we?
Yeah.
Like, of course not. You know, there's probably a competitive blue belt I don't know, I've never personally met or trained with John, but a competitive blue or purple belt could probably beat the shit out of John Danaher. But like, you're going to tell me that dude then outranks him? Like, no.
Gordon's posting a hate post about you right now.
Yeah. You know, like, so it's not always just about like, oh, you're this tough and winning this, so you are this belt.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to say Josh is an amazing athlete, and I believe he is an exception to the rule in terms of being able to hold it down as a competitor. We've yet to see what he contributes in terms of jiu-jitsu as a teacher or anything else. And that's not to say he won't.
Last one coming in from James.
I'm excited.
Why's that?
We have an apparel sponsor, Parry Athletic.
Bro, George came through, messaged us on the Instagram, said he's been following our program for ages. He's getting stronger and more mobile. And he's got this cool gear company called Parry, and he wants to send us some stuff.
And he told me that his mission was to create the best pair of training shorts ever.
Yeah, he wanted something that he could lift and roll in, and that could accommodate thick, muscular thighs and hips.
And that suits us.
Speaks to us.
Also, what I like is I love the colorful design. It actually looks really cool.
I am the most colorful dude on the mats these days, hands down.
I think the thing that I've loved about it is just it feels good. It feels good. It looks good. And you, ladies and gentlemen, can get a discount when you go to checkout. If you go to parryathletics.com, put in the code Bulletproof20 and you get 20% off. Oh, yeah.
Hi. This is a response to your podcast roughly about probably a couple of months ago now with how you say black belts don't train as much because they can't go hard or they get tired. And so they want to go hard all the time, but their body can't do it. I disagree. And I do listen to your podcast, guys, and I love your banter back and forth, and I love your unique perspective. If you're going so hard all the time that you're injured and cannot do extra sessions or even do 2 or 3 times a week, we call it the what force. Why are you doing that? You know, if you can't do that, you can't keep up, well, how are you supposed to do it in a real life situation if it was on the street or in a fight or anything? So what I just say is that, you know, even I am over 45 and, you know, and I go hard, but, you know, sometimes I have to look at a 25-year-old guy who's staring at me like a big piece of meat. Like, okay, I'm 45. I can't redline my heart. Okay, I have to slow him down. How am I going to do that? And that's the interesting part to me, is how to compete against people who are, say, more athletic than myself. I actually think that's part of the maturing of the black belt process as well. Is you can't always be the top dog, But then how do you adapt when your athleticism and I'll say your speed or reflexes slow down? I will say that
we got a 5 days or 1 week. I think that's it. There's another one. There's another one by the same name, but let's leave it at there.
Okay, interesting. I actually want to go to this one first because I think that might be slightly out of context. I mean, for me, I have not actually ever said that. I'm of the opinion, you're a black belt, go as hard as you can, do as much as you can. That's me. I think what we have said, and I might, whatever, you've drawn that conclusion from what we've said. What we have discussed is once you hit a certain age and you've accrued a certain amount of injuries later in the jiu-jitsu journey, it is acceptable for you to not be the number one athlete on the mat. And it's kind of like an unfair expectation. Well, you're a black belt. You better just work it out. I think what and I'll get Joe to correct me if I'm wrong here, what we've discussed more is that we have older people doing jiu-jitsu, and the longer you're in it, you do accumulate more damage. Now, I would agree with you in saying that when you get older, you do have to work out how to deal with the blue belt athlete coming to take a chunk out of you. And yeah, sure. But this has nothing to do with surviving on the street or being efficient. We have simply talked about jiu-jitsu in the context of being on the mat. And also, it is acceptable for you to occasionally just get tapped by someone who's more athletic than you. And if you have injuries and you are busy and you've got a hectic life, that's okay too. It's not that you're doing jiu-jitsu wrong. I actually would never say that. I think there is a way for you to be older in jiu-jitsu, be a black belt, and moderate your training. Everybody's different. If you think that you've got the pace and you know it works for you, that's cool. But I'm pretty sure we did not say what you said we said. That statement I didn't agree with either. But I think, like the point that you're making, James, I absolutely agree with. Like part of the advanced practitioner experience and the older practitioner experience is figuring out what adjustments you can make in order to deal with maybe things that weren't a problem before, like an athletic 25-year-old. So I'm totally on board there. I'm taking maybe from James's stance that there is an element, like, because he mentioned the street and the self-defense. I'm thinking maybe for him it is a little bit of a live by the sword, die by the sword kind of thing. Maybe.
And I think philosophically we've lived that life, but I would say that philosophically we're against that as the only way forward with jiu-jitsu, because you will break. Like, you will be forced out because you'll be too broken, or you'll just live a life of pain in order to do this thing that you love. And if that's a sacrifice you're happy to make, then power to you. But for me personally, I'm like, as I can, crossing into 40 now, I'm like, no, I think I'd rather change how I engage with it so that I don't have to put up with aforementioned pain.
We do not promote the brokenness.
So was the point that black belts are not going hard enough, or they're going too hard?
They're going too hard. That we had said, you get to black belt, you get older, you're going too hard, you can't keep up 3 days a week.
Oh, the reason you can't train 3 days a week is because you're going too hard.
I'm not sure. Okay. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you get older, shit gets harder.
Do you want to hear the start of the point again?
Please, let's play it again just so we're clear on it.
This is the first time ever a question will be played twice. I just want people to know that, James.
First time that
World
I've been
first.
here for a Q&A as well, so here we go.
Shit.
Hi, this is a response to your podcast roughly about probably a couple of months ago now, with how you say black belts don't train as much because they can't go hard or they get tired. Gotcha. And so they want to go hard all the time.
Right, yeah, so they don't train as often as they would like to, because essentially that sounds like James is saying that black belts are only turning up to train like on their good days where they know they can go hard, right? And not training other days because they don't have it in them to go hard.
I still don't know what to draw from the statement, actually.
Yeah, but anyway, well, I'll just say one point that maybe sometimes, at least from a coach's point of view, that might be a little bit overlooked, is someone asked me recently, he said, "Hey, Adam, do you still like jiu-jitsu?" And I was like, And I said, well, firstly, it doesn't matter what your job is. Like your job could be rubbing the tummies of puppy dogs, and you'd have days where you're like, I don't want to go to work, right? So of course, like, I still like jiu-jitsu. I'm perhaps not as driven as I was when I was in my 20s, wanting to, rip people's heads off and win comps and all that. But what is challenging as a coach who's on the mats multiple times a day, every day, is that there's this underlying level of expectation that you can just perform at will, that like you're just permanently on call, right, to be able to execute. And like that's exhausting. Like, like imagine, like you don't have to be in comp shape all the time, but yeah, be not too dissimilar to, a bodybuilder constantly being in a physique of like rip their shirt off, or a strength person constantly being in, the physique to be able to deadlift said weight. Like it's that constant that at any point in time, like you should be able to perform at like, in little air quotes, black belt level. Like that can be a bit tiring actually, as someone who is, twice a day, every day in the gym, and, I train every day, don't roll every class, but I'd be lying if there's days where I don't have particular students or whoever walk in. I'm just like I just couldn't be bothered training with that person today. Yeah. I don't want to rep that 200 kilo deadlift. Like, man.
And I don't think also that we're endorsing or condoning anything. I think the context, if I can recall anything similar to that, is that we've said people who do train less, not necessarily black belts, tend to come in and go really hard when they show up. Whereas someone who's training every day tends to moderate more because they know, I'm just going to do this again in 6 hours, or I know I'm just going to do this again in a day. So they pace more. That's probably more an observation. It's not like that's what it is, that's how it should be. And I'm pretty sure we never said that about black belts specifically. A lot of the time when we talk about this stuff, we're talking in reference to ourselves and our friends, and that doesn't mean that should be the standard. I mean, I very openly said I've trained less jiu-jitsu lately, and my body feels better. So that's probably just more of a choice towards health. If you think I'm soft because of that, well, let's just roll, because I'll be fresher and I'll wreck you. No, joke. No, but I'm saying that my move has been towards being better at health and life than better at jiu-jitsu. I would not have made that choice 10 years ago. And, you could say that's maturity. You could say it's just personal choice. So, James, hopefully we've answered your question. Everyone is approaching this differently. If you have found an approach that works for you as someone who's older in jiu-jitsu, I think that's really good. And your way doesn't have to be our way.
No, that's right. Man, I appreciate it. It's actually really nice to get someone recording something that's like a pushback.
Yeah.
Even if we didn't quite understand exactly what he was getting at, I'd welcome more of those. So if you hear something on an app and you're like, I want to challenge that, go for it, brah. Hit us on the voicemail. Thank you to everyone that left questions today. You can leave one on the webpage, bulletproof.bjj.com. Go to the podcast tab and you can record the voicemail there. We'll play it on the show and we'll answer it. And Ads, thanks for coming on today, man. It's good to have you on the Q&A.
Anytime you want some generic advice that may or may not be applicable to me.
Adam, Ice Cream Charles.
Yes, off air I'll tell you about this ice cream.
Can't wait.
You're waiting here.
Awesome.
Mad Dog, thanks fam.
Thank you.
Peace.